Yes, it is. We're here since getting elected to Congress May 22nd.
It has been exhilarating, it has been extremely exciting, and it also has been perhaps a little bit exhausting. It's been a whirlwind since getting elected. We of course got elected on Saturday, May 22nd. Spent the whole evening, of course, with a nice victory celebration. The next day, on Sunday, I spent the whole day making thank you calls, talking to individuals, cleaning up my campaign headquarters, held a press conference, booking tickets. Then the next day, Monday, I got up bright and early at 1 o'clock in the morning to have several interviews with national TV stations, including Fox News. Then went straight to a bunch of interviews with the local Hawaii TV stations starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. And after a series of interviews on all three of the Hawaii stations, as well as a radio interview at KHVH, went to sign meeting prompt at 6 a.m. for a couple hours, and drove to the Honolulu City Council, cleaned out my office, resigned from the Honolulu City Council, then got on an airplane, flew straight to Washington, D.C. After taking a red-eye overnight to Washington, D.C., I arrived here on Tuesday afternoon. I only had enough time to basically shave, brush my teeth, put on a suit, and then promptly walked on the floor of the House of Representatives, got sworn in as a member by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and then really within 5 minutes of after getting sworn in, I was handed a stack of papers and started casting my first votes as a member of the House. That's been a flavor of what my life was like the first few days after the election, and quite honestly, the pace hasn't slowed down since. It has been extremely hectic, but you know, I'm very excited to do the work of the people of Hawaii. Today, I had my first series of committee hearings. I'm very happy I was appointed to both the Armed Services Committee as well as the Budget Committee. This morning we had an exciting hearing with the Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke. Happy to report, it looks like a lot of the national media picked up some of my questioning of Ben Bernanke. What concerns me about the national economy is that although there are some signs of an economic turnaround right now, the fiscal policies of the United States Congress of spend need to change, but unfortunately are not changing. And upon my questioning of the Federal Reserve Chairman, he agreed that unfortunately the Congress right now does not have a good quote-unquote exit strategy to get us out of this mess. But I look forward to working with the people of Hawaii and very excited to be here.
So what are some of the hottest votes you'd have to take so far?
You know, the biggest votes so far have been related to spending, to no surprise. There are a lot of things that I think the majority in Congress wants to do, a number of things which I even agree with the Democrats on, but the problem is they don't want to pay for them. For example, the Democrats in the House have pushed to extend unemployment benefits, to extend fixes for Medicare and Medicaid. These are nice ideas, but the way the Democrats want to finance them is just add to a national budget deficit, and I cast no votes on those. Other things that are going on here that I have had the privilege of participating in, of course, the Armed Services Committee had a briefing earlier today on the incident in the Korean Peninsula with North Korean spies sinking a South Korean naval vessel. And I think that, of course, also has an impact on us here in Hawaii, given North Korea's ability to launch a missile to Hawaii.
What was decided at that hearing? What came out that's important?
That was just a briefing.
Uh-huh.
There was no actual decision-making process. But I think it's important for the people of Hawaii because, I mean, it's important for our nation as a whole in terms of what happens in the Korean Peninsula. But I think specifically for Hawaii, with, of course, Pearl Harbor, I think Air Force Base and Schofield Barracks, that if anything should happen in the Korean Peninsula, obviously it's going to be those soldiers and sailors and Marines from Hawaii who are going to be deployed to Korea. They're the ones who are going to have to react to that. More generally, I was very happy that my very first speech on the floor of the House of Representatives also I am pushing for Congress to pass a free trade agreement between the United States and South Korea. I think this is important for our nation, generally speaking, to encourage more trade, to help our economy. But I think specifically for the people of Hawaii, Korea is really one of the places where there is growth in the tourism industry. While the mainland United States and Japan make up the bulk of our visitors in our state's largest industry, the growing areas are actually occurring in the growing Asian economies, such as South Korea. And I think the failure of the U.S. Congress to pass a free trade agreement with South Korea is a tragedy for our nation as a whole, and has done disservice to the people of Hawaii specifically.
Can you just explain what a free trade agreement would do?
A free trade agreement would take all duties and tariffs off of goods, make it much easier to transfer and sell goods between two countries. Right now, the United States has some free trade agreements, Canada and Mexico in particular. It'll make a commercial transaction between the United States and a country to which we have negotiated a free trade agreement, similar to, say, a transaction between two companies between Hawaii and California. Right now we enjoy that, as I said, with Canada and Mexico. I think it's important that we extend these agreements to a lot of these fast-growing democratic nations throughout the world. And for us in Hawaii, the deeper we can make ties with these fast-growing Asian economies, the more it'll help our local businesses. You see, the more you deepen ties, the more visitors you actually get. And it's these international visitors who are really providing the growth and the bulk of the future of our tourist industry in Hawaii.
What do you think the chances are?
You know, right now with the Democratic majority in Congress, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also realistic that right now it doesn't look like it's happening. The President is really the one who needs to get behind it. The President has made a lot of very good remarks about his desire to see further ties between the United States and South Korea. He has made nice statements about how he supports a free trade agreement, but the administration has done nothing thus far to push a free trade agreement between the United States and South Korea, or for that matter, any of the free trade agreements. There's also a free trade agreement pending with Colombia and another one with Panama, and none of that has made any progress here in the U.S. Congress. And unless the President pushes, I really don't see the Democratic majority in Congress having any stomach to do these sensible ideas.
Now, one of your more surprising and more controversial votes so far has been on Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yes.
Give me the 30-second version on why you support that.
Sure. You know, my view is based on my experience as an Army Reserve officer. I think Don't Ask, Don't Tell is a policy that doesn't work, doesn't provide strategic value to our nation's armed services. From my experience in the Army Reserve, I saw too many examples of soldiers who would re-enlist, get a large re-enlistment bonus, and then when the reserve unit would get mobilized for Iraq or Afghanistan, suddenly claim they were gay and automatically get discharged and get to keep their re-enlistment bonus. That's not right. I believe that the United States military has very strict anti-fraternization rules, much stricter than any civilian employer, and I think these rules are sufficient to take care of fraternization issues in the military.
Okay. Tell me about these two committees you're on.
Sure. I was very happy to get appointed to both the Budget Committee and the Armed Services Committee.
Right.
The Budget Committee, I'm looking forward to working on fulfilling my campaign pledge to the people of Hawaii to watch every single dollar. I've made it very, very clear that I understand that every dollar the government spends comes from a family like yours. And right now, the U.S. Congress is spending money like there's no tomorrow. It troubles me that Congress's mentality is spend, and that doesn't work, spend some more. And I plan to use my perch on the Budget Committee to watch those fiscal issues and limit our size of our government. From the Armed Services Committee, this is of course of particular interest to me, not only because armed services are important to our nation, but after tourism, the single largest sector of Hawaii's economy is the military, and I look forward to being a very strong advocate for the U.S. military, particularly in the state of Hawaii.
So basically you're on these two committees. Are they subcommittees or they're major committees?
Those are the two main committees.
What kind of subcommittees are you on?
The Budget Committee does not have any subcommittees. The Budget Committee only meets as a whole. The Armed Services Committee has several subcommittees, of which I have been appointed to 2 subcommittees. Of course, the Armed Services Subcommittee on Readiness, and the other is the Armed Services Subcommittee on Terrorism and Unconventional Warfare.
So for a typical day, how much time do you spend in these hearings and so on?
You know, it widely varies. I guess my response is a little varied because I've only been here 2 weeks.
Right, exactly.
A typical day is hard for me to gauge, other than the fact that the typical day is very hectic, very, very busy, but I'm happy to be here. Thus far, I mean, committee hearings, like committee hearings in the state legislature or in the Honolulu City Council, can have a wide variance, anywhere from half an hour to several hours. But I really don't think there's a typical day here in the United States Congress. I mean, things are moved very, very fast over here. It's important, I think, to be a very strong and outspoken advocate for the people in Hawaii, and that's what I very much intend to do.
All right, thank you.